Well, I said I was going to mute everybody, and I think I muted the entire network. Hello, everybody. This is your UFO paranormal researchers, and we're excited to have you aboard. I'm used to some music, so I was sort of shocked, and then I guess they finally got the message because it was always so loud in the beginning. So welcome, everybody. This is American Communications Online, and I'm your host, Theresa J. Morris, with my co-host, Janet Carol Lessin, and we are syndicators for all kind of weird stuff out there we like to call anomalies. But tonight we're excited to talk about the UFO paranormal researchers, people that we know, and the topics we discuss about strange, anomalous things were strangely appealing, I think. So that's what I say, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So Janet Carol Lessin lives in Maui, Hawaii. She's been doing this with me since 2012, and she named her group and her radio show Aquarian Radio, and mine's TJ Mars ET Radio, which I got off of UFO Digest back when I was writing in 2007 for Canada. They're still out there, but Derek's passed on. We're excited because Janet has found Bill Konkolesky, and he says his name's so great, but I imagine he's used to it by now. And I saw some great pictures from back in the MUFON days, and I was in 2008, and saw his little newsletter. He did excellent in 2010. He had Peter Robbins, and Peter actually is a friend of mine on LinkedIn. Never met him, never met Bill. But Bill's going to direct us today. We're going to talk about various things, including alienology, artificial intelligence, authors, consciousness, cosmology, ESP, extraterrestrials, metaphysics, paranormal, parapsychology, people, phenomenology, physics, science fiction, singularity, space theory of everything, which is your TOE, like Tom Campbell, TV, ufology, and YouTube. And Janet specializes in out-of-body, near-death, basically her soul's book. She's an author, I'm an author, and we find authors that write like we do. So I'm excited to say that Bill Konkolesky is an author, and he has some background like we do in an out-of-body, and I'm excited to bring him on. But let me get Janet on here, and I'm going to have Janet read his bio, which she's really good at since she books the people on here. Janet Carol Lessin, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Well, I'm Janet Carol Lessin, the co-host from Maui, coming to you live from Maui, Hawaii, and I'm a lifelong experiencer. I've been doing these radio shows since 2012. We've been working this since the beginning. I'm from the crib experiencer. I remember things before I came into the body. Actually, I've tracked it back with hypnosis and reflection. But enough about me, because today we're going to focus on Bill Konkolesky, and he's I don't know if he still is or he was the state director of the Michigan chapter of the Mutual UFO Network, and I guess he started in 2004, and he had a lifetime of his own UFO and abduction encounters. He spent the last two decades actively investigating those otherworldly phenomena, trying to make some sense of the bizarre events that happened to him personally. And what he's discovered, confronting these cosmic mysteries, is that reality is far stranger than he could have ever imagined. He's the author of the autobiographical novel called Experiencer, Raised in Two Worlds. And his personal abduction experiences have been chronicled in the SyFy documentary Abduction Diaries and a DVD documentary Abducted by Aliens, UFO Encounters of the Fourth Kind, and an ABC News special, UFOs Seeing is Believing. So he gets around. And I'm really excited he's coming. I do have a lot of questions for Bill when we get into the meat of it. But, well, I guess back to you two, Jay, and you welcome Bill. And, Bill, we'd like you to start telling us about yourself and how you got into it. Go back in time, go back in the time machine to your first encounter and tell us what was happening. Okay, back to you, TJ, and then back to TJ. Bring on Bill. Are you on mute? Am I talking to no one? Oh, no.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Maui, Hawaii.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's extremely lots of rain coming down here in Gulf Breeze. It's usually sunny and beautiful, and people love to come to Gulf Breeze. And maybe even Bill can tell us about the Gulf Breeze incident down here. I used to see pictures, and I've been abducted down here off of the ocean, and it's on. If you want to see the day I was taken, Janet and I have put up the ocean where I was watching this big cloud overhead, and I disappeared. So I guess they kicked off the cell phone and left it in the sand with my shoes. I'm like, now what? But let's hear Bill's. But you can look it up on Allied Command.
That was
started
just a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was.
So I'll have to get that. Is that a YouTube, or is there something I can grab?
It's on. Well, it's under my name, Theresa J. Mars. But look under Allied Command. ALLIED space COMMAND, and it looks like in the clouds there's a dark Mercedes sign, like a circle with 3 lines that meet in the middle. And I found that interesting, and then this big white started rumbling like something out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind by Steven Spielberg. And most people know I've had my family in Lubbock, Texas, and the Lubbock Lights, and I was over there for the Phoenix Lights. And most of you know I've had encounters since I was born, and then went to White Sands, and uncles worked at White Sands Missile Range, and I had my first clearance at NASA in '68. So, you know, I've got a long history, but this time they told me to keep doing what I was doing. So but we can talk about that with this guy. Let's hear Bill, because Bill Konkolesky. He wrote a book about abducted by aliens. UFO Encounters of the Fourth Kind. Now, is that his book? We'll have to ask him. And then a new special, UFOs Seeing is Believing. So this guy's been in the business a long time, and he's braver than I am. My books were sort of convoluted with SyFy, but Janet's trying to talk me into getting a book out with the real deal. So this guy is the real deal. He actually works with MUFON, or did. Let me get him on here. Bill Konkolesky, please say your name and give us an idea who your three-dimensional, I guess your avatar container is. Bill Konkolesky. Is that your birth name your mother gave you, or is it William Konkolesky?
I was born William. Can you hear me now?
Now I can, yeah. Yes. You sound great.
Okay, great. Yep, I was born William, and I am grateful that you have me on the show today. And to clear up a point you were not sure on is, yes, I am still Michigan's state director for the Mutual UFO Network. So I'm 15 years strong now and still going.
Whoa, Bill, you are something. Yeah, well, tell us how you got into that. But I'm real excited because you're like the kind, as they say over where Janet is in Hawaii, the kind. You're like us, or we're like you. So I want to talk about us being a little strangely appealing UFO paranormal people. I'm trying to get all these people together in an association so we can finally meet. So tell us about yourself, and why are you being abducted? Give us an idea of how you got. Did your mother birth you normally, like you have a birth certificate in America?
Yep. Yes, for sure. I have a number of experiences over the years, and I often like to respond when somebody asks me, you know, how did you get into the UFO phenomena, by saying really the UFO phenomena got into me first. My very first memory at age 2 was a little gray guy coming up to my crib and me screaming my head off for my parents, and my parents just telling me to go back to sleep. I wasn't taken at that point. The little being just kind of watched me, observed me for a few moments, and then walked out of the room. And this isn't something that I remembered years later, like, oh, I think I remember something happened, several years ago. It burned into my memory at that moment, and I never forgot it. And so I was abducted again at age 4. 3 little gray guys came into my room, pulled me out of body, and tried to see how I could operate without my body, just kind of floating around. At age 7, I was abducted onto a craft where they cut my arm, and I still have the scar from that. And then several other experiences in my later youth and then into my teen years. And, they just kept coming for me, and I've been a frequent flyer for many years. At a certain point, the phenomena slowed down quite a bit, but especially growing up, the title of my book, Experiencer Raised in Two Worlds, was very much because I was a normal kid and living a normal life, and yet all these other crazy, weird things were going on while I was growing up.
Wow. So I wanted to ask you, I'm an experiencer, and I identify as an experiencer. Excuse me, let me get a drink here. So there's a different categories. There's contactee, experiencer, and abductee. So from what I've heard so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're identifying as a abductee, that these were abductions, that you had no permission in the process. Is that true? And tell me what you realize is the difference between the three categories. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm a little bit of throat problem here.
I may feel more comfortable with experiencer because not all of the things that had happened to me were moments where I was physically taken somewhere else or taken out of body somewhere else. Some of the events were more on some sort of equal footing, and so I don't like to think just paint a broad brush, with a broad brush and say everything that happened to me was an abduction event. That wouldn't be accurate. I think a lot of these terms, contactee, experiencer, abductee, really have to deal with just somebody's personal choice of lingo. I think that it's really all basically the same phenomena. It's just whatever somebody gloms onto. If you want to play, sort of like a pop psychology type of thing, people could say that they're an abductee simply because they don't like the terms contactee or experiencer. Contactee has a sort of a negative connotation to some people because it deals with time during the, chiefly like the 1950s and 60s where people were coming forward and say they were being taken to Venus and Mars. And it seemed like there was a lot of individuals in that community that were not really shooting straight with their stories. And so I think that the term contactee got kind of a bad rap. Maybe enough time has passed that's fading a little bit, but I still think that people have an aversion to the term.
What I think, sorry to interrupt you, but I just, before you get too far down the line, I wanted to address that. It seems like it's come full circle because now a lot of the conferences are presenting things about, Big Rock and that whole early era. We had at our conference, we had the sun that was raised by, I forget, one of the original contactees. I'm sorry, it's not fresh in my memory, but he was the stepson of one of the first generation contactees. So it seems like there's a newfound respect for those people. In fact, other people are coming forth and they've shown more evidence about the Venus connection, more stories about Valiant Thor, and tying everything in. So it's interesting. But that was, I think, because back in the 50s there was a huge giggle factor. You were contacted by aliens, ha 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 ha, right? But we're now, we have so many people coming out of the closet. I've lost count. I mean, I have interviewed personally, and CJ with me, hundreds, probably going on, getting into the high hundreds of different people that have now identified as one of the three categories. So anyway, I just want to interject that. TV, what do you think about the three categories? What are your thoughts?
I'd like. I've just hearing you talk. I've decided I need a separate category because you and I have been doing alienology, cosmology, phenomenology, ufology for years and years, and having been born and seen them from the crib and going to White Sands, and to me it was totally normal to have a family off planet and on planet, and then I was groomed to work in uniform and out of uniform with those that look like us on the planet and off planet. I need one separately for those taken that are in agreement, because I was totally in agreement with doing what I did, and I look forward to it. So under consciousness, and this would be the perfect night to introduce this, because, yes, I understand, and I wrote for years and helped influence the Internet and all of those titles because I was working inside the government when we went from Wayne to Microsoft and blah, 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 Sun Systems, but DARPA and all that stuff. But I like the fact that we are doing what we're doing now and talking. I never in a million years thought I'd ever be doing a radio show continually, especially in the paranormal world. But the Paranormal Desk called me to do the kind of work I do. So I would like to not only have, like Bill is expressing with many years with MUFON, and being an abductee or contactee or experiencer, but one that is taken, but I know that I never liked saying that I was abducted by aliens. I know alien civilizations exist. I know that most people that have had, it's sort of like, I think the person that, the first one that we in our psyche relate to is the Barney and Betty Hill story, and that was the one that I remember most when I was a little girl. So they were they were abducted by aliens. Now, historically, we can get into that with the historians like Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman, George Filer, the biggies, and Don Berliner, some of the first books, after Ruppelt. But the Kenneth Arnold story, La La La, and the Blue Book story. But what do you think, Bill? Because, may I call you Bill instead of William? Can you hear me?
Bill is perfect. Thank you.
It says New York. Am I coming across not good?
No, he responded. Can you hear him?
Probably.
You can't hear him? Bill, go
No,
ahead and speak.
Can you hear me now? I said Bill is fine.
Yeah, Bill. What do you think? Because if it's people like abductees, and we can call them contactees back in the day, and then abductees, because they seem to went from contactees to abductees, then to recently, at least since I've been writing with 207, and in 2007 with UFO Digest, it became experiencers. And folks, we can do a historical study on the taxonomy and epistemology. But we need to add something for people like me that go, oh, not again. But it was like with an agreement.
Well, we're calling those, there's another category that's come about. We call it ambassadors. So on some unconscious level, you chose to come here to interact with humans, and but it's at more conscious level. The experiencer is kind of like a catch-all contact. Anyway, let's ask Bill. Bill's okay.
Bill,
come on, Bill. Speak up.
Daryl Sims doesn't like ambassadors because of the Galaxy Federation and all those people.
Let's just talk about. I don't care what Daryl thinks. Let's just talk to Bill. Bill.
Well, Bill, what do you think?
Yeah.
So the term experiencer, though, the reason that I'm most I guess feeling in line with that particular term is because I believe that it allows for extra phenomena to enter the picture simply beyond a straight face-to-face or what have you contact. An experience, for example, say you see a UFO, that doesn't make you an abductee, that doesn't make you a contactee, but it does make you an experiencer. And, it's just to me, it allows a broader spectrum of phenomena that not every time that you have an unusual experience, it's necessarily that you're being taken on board or what have you, but it's, a string of phenomena that are undeniably linked together. So, if, for example, if, I was to say, I'm an abductee because I was taken on board, there you go. But if I was to say I'm an abductee because I was taken aboard, I saw some UFOs another night, we've had poltergeist activity in the house, I've had out-of-body experiences, all of these things are true, but you start to say, well, how far are you going to stretch that term abductee till it doesn't really fit anymore? But if you were to say experiencer, I do think it allows that sort of all-encompassing, sort of lifestyle, if you will. I don't know if lifestyle is the right thing I want to say, but it seems that, of course, that most people who are taken several times. Most people who are taken also experience a wide variety of other phenomena. So I really think experiencer usually is your best bet. It's possible maybe for somebody to be taken once in their life and not have any other paranormal phenomena enter their lives, and I guess then that person you could say is technically an abductee. So I think experiencers are sometimes abductees, but if you're an abductee, it doesn't necessarily make you an experiencer, whatever. All plays on semantics, but that's why I really glom onto the term experiencer.
Yeah, and my granddaughter says, I'm an experiencer. I experience everything. So I heard her say that in the last few days because my daughter died, and we've all been going through a lot of trauma. They had to pull her out of school today. It takes us a while as humans with our nervous system to get over emotions. It's hard to learn or to sit in school when you're traumatized from death, dying, or someone you've loved. But she made a good point. We're all experiencers, depending on what we experience. So we need to start defining, that we are whatever we're talking about, because consciousness has a lot to do with it. And if you're ready, and I'm learning that from the children today that are all into virtual reality, and how they pretty much perceive this as a virtual reality out here anyway, especially since we're training them all in another reality that's not going to go away with Google and Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook in the news today, because they're the big four. And we know that this is virtual reality. We're having to use these tools because Bill, Janet, and I, even if we've been experiencing extraterrestrials or other biological entities in our reality, we still talk with a tongue, and we have to use our senses, hearing and speaking. So how say you, Bill Konkolesky? You know what we're talking about. And the kids today, they're all about cyberspace and virtual reality, and we're all creating a whole new world in there. So we got to go to the next level. You were experiencing raised in two worlds. Now, is that your book? You were raised in two worlds?
Yeah, the reason that I say that is because I did have a normal childhood. It's just that I additionally had strange things happening to me, and there was no easy way to combine the two lives together. I was raised Catholic, but yet the Catholic Church never talked about the types of things I was experiencing. So my lessons about what a higher power looked like didn't match the higher power that I was experiencing. Not to say that the Catholic Church was incorrect in its, assessment of the universe, but the lessons that I learned in church never covered the phenomena that I was experiencing firsthand.
Right. You there, TJ? So you're more comfortable with the term experiencer. So let's go do your story. So what was the first time you had an encounter, and what did that look like?
For me, again, my first encounter was at age 2 when the little gray guy came into my room. The first really robust experience I had certainly was at age 7, and I can walk through the experience. I was laying in bed one night, and sort of a dark portal opened up over the bed, and down dropped this metal hose. It was very similar to like a shower hose in terms of a metal hose. And at the end of it was a lot of sparking electricity, and it started whipping around over my head. and I felt myself getting sort of vibrational washes over me, a lot of electrical feelings, and then it felt like I was sort of sucked up. And then I found myself on, I believe, on board a craft. It was certainly inside some kind of interior, and I believed at the time, even now, nothing has made me think otherwise, that I was actually on board a flying craft. And I was greeted by two little gray guys that walked me into the next room inside this craft, as I'll call it. And then I was asked to lay on a bed. And so I sat on the bed. When I say bed, it was really just sort of a metal block. And then another little gray guy came in. The three little gray guys then left the room, left me alone in the room. I was 7 again in this room, and they didn't have me restrained in any sort of fashion. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get out of here, at least leave this room. And I am not going to follow in the direction those three little gray guys went. I'm going to head the other direction. So I went through another door, and I walked down a hall, which was a long curving hall, until I realized that I was walking into a dead end. I looked back, and I saw the three little gray guys there, and they were watching me, almost as if saying, this is interesting. Let's see how he handles this. And when I turned around, I'm like, well, there's not so much I can do. They got me. And they then told me to go into this room that was down that same hallway. As I entered the room, there was another gray in there, but this one was taller. The ones that were following me down the hallway were about 3 feet tall. This one was about 5 feet tall and more pale than the little ones that were following me. And in this room with the taller gray, that I instantly got this sort of instinctive feeling was a medical type, like a doctor. This gray had me sit in what looked very similar to a dentist's chair. Again, all very metal and everything, but it had the feeling of a dentist chair. So I sat in the chair, and then I realized I was stuck to the chair, like magnetized somehow, or whatever, gravitized. I don't know the real expression to use, but I was stuck to this chair. So the gray came up to me and said telepathically, be really good and you'll get to see the color blue. And I'm thinking, well, these things don't really know people very well, especially children, I'm used to a sucker or a sticker, and this thing is telling me if I'm good, I get to see the color blue. This is kind of weird. So then I felt a sharp pain on my right arm, the bicep, and I looked down and I saw a cut on my arm, a very thin slice, a horizontal slice across my arm. And as I'm watching it, it is healing as I'm watching it. I see it sort of scar over. And then I look back up at the taller gray, and at this point it's got its face right directly in mine, and its eyes right against mine. And suddenly its deep black eyes turned to a bright backlit blue, a very electrical cerulean type of blue. And it was really mesmerizing, tranquilizing, hypnotizing, and I just felt completely at peace. And then I blacked out, and the next morning I woke up in bed and looked down, and there's this scar on my arm right where I remember getting cut the night before. And so, what to do about that? So later in that day, in the afternoon, I'm playing in the backyard along with the little boy who lived across the street at the time, who was 6, and we're climbing trees in my backyard. When this mist rolls around the corner of the house and starts rolling through the backyard, and it looked like a fog, but it was a very limited small cloud, and this thing is just rolling into the backyard. And as it passed by me, that as it came right through me, really, and all around me, there was a little gray inside the cloud, and it had the sort of, it wasn't like smoke, it was more like a smoke machine, and the little gray, there was a little gray inside this, and it went up to me and said telepathically, "Are you okay?" Meaning like this was like a checkup call, like, "Are you fine after what happened last night?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then it said, "Oh," and it seemed happy, satisfied. And then it continued to walk, and the cloud that was surrounding it continued with it and went through another neighbor's backyard and disappeared. And my neighbor, whom I'm still in touch with, again, he was 6 at the time, he remembers the cloud coming through the backyard. He didn't see the little gray guy inside. That was for me, I guess. But he remembers when we were in the backyard and his cloud just went right through the backyard. So, witness to that.
It's so fun when you find somebody that remembers it. You can collaborate your story. It's like validation. Oh, I'm not crazy. That really did happen. Yeah. So that was the first one. What happened next? How long have you been getting these experiences all your life, and what kind of frequency are they happening?
Well, when I was younger, like before I got into my teen years, it would be the memories I have of these experiences are one maybe every couple of years kind of a thing. And I'm not necessarily saying that I didn't have more, but that's as much as I remember. And I think I remember as much as that I probably had a couple where they managed to completely black me out through the whole experience, and I'll never remember. But when I got into my teen years, yeah, sometimes it'd be a couple times a month. And that happened in my late teens. And then as I got into my 20s, it would be maybe once every few months. And then when I got to be about 30, it dropped off precipitously. And I continued to have unusual paranormal phenomena happen, but it seemed like I was no longer in such direct focus with them. It's kind of a funny thing. It's almost like the more that I got involved with the Mutual UFO Network, the more they held back. And that, I don't know, and I don't know if that's necessarily a direct and logical correlation, but it just, at the very least, it's a coincidence. When I reached out and I found other people who had the same types of experiences as I did, I became a UFO field investigator. I got involved with MUFON in a number of ways. Certainly had regression sessions. It all seemed to be that, to me, now this is going out on a limb, but this is just an instinctive sort of thing from me, that I believe that they want me to be public with what happened to me up until that point. And they don't want to traumatize me further or mess me up. They had all these things happen to me, put me in a position where I'm able to speak about the phenomena without any backlash. My family is 110% supportive. In fact, I come from, it runs in the family, so, so I guess I have the family support. And then even at work and amongst my friends, and it just seems like, almost as if, in this case, to bring in a term like ambassador seems to make sense. That, I'm out there speaking about the phenomena, and therefore they're satisfied with this relationship that we have, that we dated for a long time, and then now I get to talk, give all the juicy details, But I guess that's one way to put it. Now, to say that it runs in my family, though, I will add, means that although stuff isn't continuously happening to me, there are family members that still are experiencing all sorts of phenomena, including contact with the Greys.
So do you think that you were part of their breeding program, so that's why you were having the contact, and not going out there, but I've interviewed like hundreds. So do you think they might have had you in this program, and then you're past the prime, you're getting older, they're taking younger sperm, that type of thing?
I thought about that. I've considered that. I can't dismiss that possibility. It's certainly possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as a woman, we notice, they tend to come more during our period, when we're ovulating, and we can reproduce, and then it does slack off for many people. But those that are kind of they make it to the next level, so they're selected as an ambassador. They continue to have it their whole life. And a lot of people, it's like once they're past the breeding period, okay, then it falls off, to nothing or maybe never again. So, I mean, it's not 100% across the board, but there's certainly some tendencies for those types of things to happen. What do you find? You're an investigator, so I'm sure you've documented a lot of these cases. What do you find is happening with the ages of the abductees? What do they come more, like you said, during a certain period of your life, and then it slacks off?
Well, there are a lot of experiencer groups out there, groups of people that find each other with a similar experience, and then they meet with various degrees of public awareness. Meaning that, like, most of these groups that I find don't want anybody to know about a group. It's generally invitation only, and, they're very protective, and there are a lot more of these groups out there than people, I think, even in the UFO community seem to know. But a particular group that I've been a part of now for several decades, it seems that the folks in this group are on the same basic cycle that I am, that most of them have dropped off at the same rate that my experiences have dropped off. And it's not to say, I mean, last summer I saw 3 UFOs, or 4. Geez, I didn't even think about the one in Nevada. No, that was 2 years ago. But but with direct abduction experiences, I haven't had that type of experience in a long time, nor has the group that I'm part of. They have other types of unusual experiences, but somehow not that same exact, black and white encounter. Little gray guys come in, take you, you're on a table, they put you back, they try to make you forget, etc. That sort of classic abduction event, that doesn't tend to happen. Though I do know other people that still have that kind of experience, not speaking again of the group that I'm part of, but people report the classic abduction scenario to us still pretty continuously in MUFON. So the program's still ongoing. It's not like the program dropped off. It's just that somehow, I guess, a group of people who were having the same types of experiences at the same time were on some sort of same program where at some point, very much in sync with each other, the beings decided, okay, we've got what we wanted from these individuals. Let's move on to other individuals. And
are
then
they of
it's
a
not
certain biological age?
Well,
like, are these people older, or you see that the younger people have the type A type of abduction, where the little grays come at the foot of the bed, and then the older people. Like for me, this past year, I had a gray. First, it was full on daylight. The sun was coming up. It was already, the whole bedroom was illuminated. It was dawn, and I was looking at the sun coming up, and then I turned the other direction, and there was a 6-foot owl right in my bedroom. And I just said, I kind of giggled and said, "Oh, really?" And then it shapeshifted into one of the taller grays type of beings. And so we had a dialogue. But see, I've been doing this, I'm 65, I've been doing it all my life. I'm no longer afraid. And so it was more like just a communication, a dialogue. It wasn't abduction. We didn't go anywhere. I had this conversation. It was daylight. My husband could have come into the room at any moment. I was wishing he did. But, and then we said goodbye and got on with my day. So I'm having those type of experiences where I'm in council meetings, I'm going to other planets, I'm observing their programs. They've got one where they're relocating homeless people to a planet where they that's been kind of not decimated by war, but the population was killed off, and so they have all these wonderful buildings, and they're bringing in carpenters and electricians, all kinds of people to retrofit these buildings. The buildings are too big, so they're making them so the smaller humanoids can accommodate them. All kinds of things are going on, and I'm showing these programs, and I'm going, wow, and I wake up so excited. I tell my husband, this happened, that happened, and I know TJ was recounting how, and she can share her story on the beach. So we're older, we're in our 60s now, and I'm no longer part of a breeding program, and I've gotten used to being with the extraterrestrials, so I'm not in that fight or flight fear response. Wendy Stryber describes that he, at first you're like all freaked out, and then over time he learned how to sit and notice and meditate with the extraterrestrial that was visiting him in his upstate cabin. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to TJ, but I just wanted to interject that and ask you if you see that there's a correlation with the age of the experiencer with the type of experiences that they're having. And then your group that you're with, those who are now having your types of experiences, are they all around the same age range?
Our ages are a pretty broad range. Most of the people in the group, I would say, are in their 60s. I'm not yet 50, and it seems to have been true for everybody. Now, what you say is also valid, which is the older people were having slightly different experiences than the younger people back in, say, the 90s when we were all younger. But in terms of just the volume dropping out, that seems to have been a universal thing. And again, I'm not saying that it's not like a worldwide phenomena that it's dropped off just, for certain individuals. The way I look at it with this particular group, and, I'm going out on a limb with assumptions on a lot of what I say here, but my assumption is that the reason that we were brought together is to support one another while we were going through the similar steps of, a similar type in general of abduction phenomena, even though what might have been happening to us on an individual basis was different. We shared several commonalities, and I think that somehow cosmically we were brought together, whether nudged together by the Greys themselves or some sort of higher power that looks out for people who have these types of experiences. I mean, you can make any number of guesses, but I think that we were brought together to support each other during that particular time of where we were frequent flyers, so to speak. I love that term. But then we were also, we're also still together, even though for all of us that particular cycle is over. We got together when, when it was, things were pretty heavy, and, we might as well have just sort of dropped off afterwards if we wanted to, but, we became good friends during that time. And when you share that type of deep experience, you pretty much have a lifelong friend, because that's a lot of support that you get from each other. But, otherwise, yeah.
I agree. You get close and you develop who else can you talk to about this stuff? So, TJ.
Yes.
You have a question or comment?
We're being joined by some people on UFO Association, and they've had experiences too. So it's very interesting that we are coming together, and I'm in the 60s group as well. But maybe we should start looking as paranormal researchers as to what it is that we have in common at a linear timeline, because space-time and gravity may or may not exist with a lot of these beings. But now the Greys that I worked with, they were very different, uniquely. Sort of spooked me at first because I was used to the ones that look like us, normal Americans, right on board ships. So, and Tom, but remember, Janet, when Tom died, he looked like, to me, he turned into a little tiny, thin gray, you know. But what he told me was always about the ones that their planet got, raped and pillaged by those big wolf-looking dudes, and I don't know. We never came up with a name for that faction, the warring faction.
Well, Tom doesn't know that you were TJ. Let me just give you a little background.
Oh.
TJ was in like the secret space program type thing. She was had joined the military and then got involved in their covert operations as an investigator, and so she ended up being on a ship up. What was it? It was outside of Mars. There were 5 ships, if I have the story right. And they were,
yeah, they patrolled the universe, and the ones that Tom and I was with, I was based literally on huge. We had a fleet of 5. But the one where Tom and I were flying over towards Mars, remember, they could never come down and blah, blah, blah. And, it's a whole, you got to write books about this stuff in a consciousness level. But to be in a 3D reality with people just like us, that's what we're introducing to what people call disclosure. But it's basically the same thing that's been going on for millions, if not billions of years in our consciousness, in our information age. But, yeah, I've got a story where I was born into this body, and you find out afterwards these people are training you, and then I went to White Sands and met them over there, and then, realized in the ESP stuff when I was a teenager, and then I had died in 2nd grade, and then I died again having my last daughter. Now she just died a few weeks ago, March 16th, but she was ET, and when we were working with the Nordics here during cancer and Moffitt Cancer Center, they were calling her Other, and they were asking me questions like, "Are you involved with other people coming in from countries?" Involved with the CIA.
Decipher.
Yeah.
Let me decipher a little bit for you because you're jumbling things so fast, and we need more background.
I'm sorry,
and for Ken. Yeah, you do. So TJ's daughter was going through cancer, trying to save her. They were doing bone marrow transplants, and they asked TJ, what's going on? This kid's blood isn't right. She's not human. Well,
some of her was.
There you are.
Not all of it.
Some of it was, but not all of it. How does she have this alien DNA? Yeah. So anyway, so let's go back to Bill and tell us. Okay, so you're in this group, and it's one of the support groups, and there's more support groups than we could ever imagine, right? That's what you're saying. There's a lot more support groups. And this one, is this a public one or one that's by invitation only, or how do people get in your group?
Well, he's in MUFON.
This is closed now.
He's in MUFON,
So we're talking
right?
about a support group. We're talking about a support group. It's a separate group, right?
So I met these individuals through MUFON, and I'm aware of other groups. It's just that I've stuck with this particular group, and let me just interject here and say I'm so sorry about your loss. Just to hear about that is really something. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to come back and do radio shows and not. I'm trying not to be emotional, so I sound cold, and I apologize to all my listeners. I've got another guy here, Bob Emmons, but I told him he could come on maybe and share a little bit, and then we can have him back, Janet, but Bob wants to come on too. But I want to give the next 10 minutes at least to Bill, and then ask Bill if it's okay to have somebody else just at least say hi to us and join us, because he may join our UFO Association or something. But thank you, Bill. this other guy's name, but Bill, I think she's wanting to know about this other group, but I'm sure there's plenty. This other guy's name is Dave Emmons, and he's listening now. He's from Illinois, so Michigan's next to Illinois, but maybe you guys could help each other out. You have a support group that you meet with on a regular monthly basis, or not, Bill?
I wouldn't say it's a monthly basis. Lately, it's been at least a few times a year.
Oh, okay. So all of them are extraterrestrial, are hybrids, or are they abductees, or are they contactees, or what is their claim to fame, I guess, in the UFO paranormal world?
Everybody's an experiencer. Some of the accounts that folks share, I would say there are a majority of people who remember onboard experiences, but not everybody does. Some remember face-to-face encounters that are not on board, and it is very context-centric. And there was a time where we were indeed meeting much more frequently, and that was back in the day when our experiences were much more frequent. But now, the older you are, the more things find their way into your life, and it's not as easy to get together as much. And with the just not having as much stuff happen, I just still think it's great we're even able to get together even once a year, and so a few times a year is a definite blessing. And for anybody out there that's interested in a group like this, I would say that I would stress to keep careful company with people that share your perspectives. There are many accounts that I've heard of people getting together that necessarily don't think the same way, have the same opinions, or just a variety of things. So it takes a long, careful time to build a good group. And so if anybody's interested in doing that, if you were to say, hey, anybody who's had an experience, meet me, come over my house this Saturday, you'll probably be in for a little adventure. Put it that way.
Don't open your house to strangers is the key to that one. Have a little, I get that, because we're still human. We're still biologicals. And just like me inviting Dave here, he's listening now, and I don't want to alienate people from what we discuss, especially if we have similar accounts, and I've had them my entire life. But I wasn't able to share them while I was investigator. Matter of fact, I'd get fired if I had anything to do with J. Allen Hynek or CUFOs, and that was the only one I knew of before Don Berliner, and I went to Roswell to talk to Glenn Dennis, and he was very much like you. He was very highly skeptical, but I was able to impress him with a few magic tricks, so to speak. And the guy, one of their friends told him he better get heart surgery done and all that. So Sally, working at the Roswell Museum, was shocked and got back with me. And how'd you know all this stuff? And he did, and he had to go get operated. You saved his life. I was like, well, thanks. So just me. But you're right, because sharing your skills, your tools, your talent, your emotions, your needs, thoughts, wants, deeds is very critical to your soul's essence and moving forward in your own consciousness flow in this universal consciousness. So, be aware that not everyone has the same level of experience or the same spiritual path. We say they all go up the same mountain, but do they really? Because some out there go in various universes. And there are various levels of universe, and we're going to get into that. But I'm being very careful who I'm choosing as friends, Bill. So I get your drift. So paranormal groups are important. I've got one, Bill, that I'm just building. It's taken me 3 or 4 months because my daughter was passing over, and she was so happy that we were discussing it the day she passed. It was a sunny day. It was on a Saturday, March 15th, if everybody can remember back where they were. I had a daughter looking forward to March 25th birthday, and she had just celebrated her 45th birthday, January 27th. And Janet was on the phone with me the day she died. My other partner, Tommy Hawksblood, on the Big Island, was on the other phone. I have 5 phones, actually. But it was a horrendous experience because we were talking about doing the Gulf Breeze Metaphysical group. And I had paid the dues on Meetup, right? The Meetup. So I suggest if you do that, set you up a Meetup group. It's highly effective here. And Janet's got one in Albuquerque. But Janet and I are doing our part, but we're just now getting to write a book together to support each other. And Bill, I'd really want to get into your book a little bit with your name because I love to support authors. And I want to bring on in the next 5 minutes or so this other guy, just because I've never done that before. And we don't usually bring on speakers on the show like that. They have to plan, and Janet books them months in advance. But I'd still like to see how we do this, Bill, because you don't know any more about him than you do me, do you, Bill? We just don't know.
Yep.
So go back to that. Explain. It's just about being cautious. Don't just think everybody's your friend because you've had an experience. Is that your message?
Yeah. I think that one of the things about this phenomena is that it's not widely curated, is one way that I'll put it. There are a lot of, it's a very open topic. There are a lot of different perspectives on what's going on, and a lot of people have a wide variety of encounters that, some of their subjectivity comes out in how they describe what's happened to them, and it's nearly impossible to pin down anything that's universal about this phenomena when you're talking about a group of experiencers. The more experiencers you bring into a particular, group of study, for example, the more wide variety of experiences they had. And then when you put them all, though, in the big picture, you'll see the connected dots. If you like turn, the data one way or the other, you'll see a common vibe, a common connection, a sort of a familial thing amongst all of these people who are experiencers, but without, a universally agreed even lexicon of what to use in this phenomena. You'll have people with all sorts of different opinions coming in, and just to try to find a common language to describe what's going on, as even we were talking about at the beginning of the hour, that's tricky enough. But then when you have people coming into a group, let's just use this one metric among many. You got somebody who comes in who's afraid to sleep at night. They only sleep during the daytime. They're highly anxious all the time. They have emotional breakdowns. This phenomena is weighing on them heavily. And then in the same room, you have somebody talking about peace, love, and light that they experience from these entities.
That's Janet.
That's Janet. Yeah, I'm sort of in the middle. I try to be, I don't know, open to everybody. But I will, if the guy's crying all that, I'll send somebody to that person. What do you do in that case, Bill? How do you handle it?
Let him finish his sentence. So if you have somebody that's peace, love, and light, and then what's the end of your sentence? Go ahead.
Is there another group?
Well, no, he doesn't know his sentence. Go ahead. Okay. Let him finish his sentence. No,
just basically, you can imagine the conversation between these two. One, the person who's traumatized says, I've had nothing but negative experiences. And the person who's had the positive experiences says, and not to say that everyone would just jump out and say something like this, but imagine this. Say that person who has a positive experience says to the negative experiencer, possibly you aren't seeing this correctly. And then it becomes a personal affront to the person who's traumatized. And then suddenly, there's a complete breakdown right there. and it's tough to move on from a moment like that when people have, people take this, in different ways. And a big part of it certainly is, I've had these experiences since I was 2, so I am, fine with it. Somebody who has their first experience as an adult, after living their whole life saying that, that there's no other life in the universe, then suddenly they're abducted. Gosh, to be in that person's shoes. And then to put those 2 people in the same room, and then say, okay, you and I are alike because we've both been abducted. We're brothers, sisters, we're together, right?
Yeah, we've all had the same. No, we haven't. But yes, this is a whole new discipline, a whole new academic lifestyle culture phenomena. But, paranormal isn't so para. It's getting to be more normal now in physics, thanks to quantum physics and the level of consciousness. We're getting to critical mass consciousness now that we understand this is it's not our new normal. It's been the always normal, people coming and going at various levels of existence. It's just, we're just now realizing and talking about it. My mother didn't believe in UFOs whatsoever, but when she was a child, she ate a peach a cyanide thing or whatever, and she got deathly ill and had an out-of-body, but she didn't believe in UFOs. Nope. No ETs, no little green men, no little gray men. Didn't want nothing to do with it.
Let me address what Bill said about mixing the people in the room. So as a hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist, counselor, we learn to meet people where they are. So it's really good to have a therapist. I've been doing UFO discussion support groups since the late, I'd say, 1990, 89, 90, when I moved to Penn State University. We had one there. And I just want to, tell everybody, you have to develop a sensitivity to each person where they are in this now. No 2 people have the exact same experience, and we perceive it differently. What we find is if you're brave enough to go into it and allow yourself to be facilitated by a trained therapist, that is, you got to be careful because some therapists want to try to fix and repair you, and you're definitely not broken. You don't need to be fixed or repaired. You're not broken. So if you can find a sensitive therapist to carry with you as you journey into yourself, you can uncover, all these things that are magical and mystical, and go from trauma to, out the other side. You can spot the other side. It can happen for, I'd say 99% of them come out the other side. Very few people are being, abducted by demonic forces that, want to take you to satanic rituals. The mind-out people are another category because the military is doing things that are often far more traumatic than what's going on with at least the ones that we're getting. We don't really know, looking at this whole thing, there's stories coming that some people are taken and never returned. So I'm not sure if it does. But the ones that end up coming to a support group that we kind of can track and get a common story, most of them come out the other side and get to a point where I was reacting negatively because, it was new to them, it was unknown. Most of my trauma was because it was somebody I could talk to. It wasn't accepted. It wasn't the norm. If I said something, I'd be crazy. Back in the 50s and 60s, they could stick you in an institution, lock you up, and you'd never see the light of day. So there were lots of things to fear around, being someone that being an experiencer and someone that saw things that were out of the box. So that was a very wise decision to not express it to. I couldn't tell my parents. I did try telling my parents some things, and so if you have somebody that has a strange reaction, it's good to just not talk about it and find those people you can talk to. But I hope that we can eventually establish a basic protocol and training for groups, and hopefully at least have one professional in the group to help people work through their emotional state, much like that television show. What was it called? People of Earth. It was very cute, and it was a joke, but they had some good stuff there. Somebody knew what they were doing, and so that group had a professional therapist that helped to gather them together and help them deal with what their emotions. And nobody's emotions are wrong, right? Your emotions are your emotions. They're your key. They will help you uncover what's really going on in the deepest core level. So we applaud that you have your emotions. We encourage you to go into them and see what your emotions have to tell you. There's always some great wisdom in your emotions. Anyway, I'll pass the talking stick.
If people take on my story and my husband's story and combine them, he was looking for the military weapons. I was strictly communications born. However, when you put us together, the stories start combining into the fact that we're here because those that we worked with that look like humans and worked in the Universal Higher Supreme Allied Command, the little grays, after they lost their planet, sort of became subservient, and they started making little clones too because they were lighter than we are. They could travel through the dimensions easier than we could, and these little balsa wood type Roswell crafts, right? The little 30 by 30s or the jumpers or the we call them Galaxy Universal Shuttles, but they all go up to these larger spacecraft. But when you have first-hand information and then you go back into your past lives and look at all the stories you've got from, this is not new folks to a lot of us older beings, but first of all, you've got to believe in reincarnation to understand people come and go in these containers like forever. And so what we're doing is the story that Janet wants me to go ahead and tell and make it part of reality is the fact that I've been writing about it for years, but she wants it all in one place so it's easier to absorb, is the fact that we're here because at one time the people that, at least the ones I worked with, that looked like humans and extraterrestrial, CIA, military, government, on and off planet, we had gone so far into AI, like before Atlantis Move and all that, to we started, it was all about progressing with lack of emotions because they didn't work for us. We got rid of the ones, just like we did with hospitals here on the planet. We didn't want the ones that were all emotional and all that. It didn't serve our purpose when we were working with AI and intelligence and, the warring planets and all that. We got rid of the emotions because it didn't serve our community or our culture. So, it got to be where everything was not about your emotions. So even the way they had children, they don't marry. They're all, you're either one or the other or both. And so all that changes in the future, or at least maybe now. It's just at another level of existence that there's some on the planet and some off the planet and some in other universes. So it depends on what you understand and what you've experienced. But Janet, remember, if we go ahead and write this book and we incorporate some of the stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, but it wasn't my choice. These were things because of millions and billions of years of putting people on the planet, but they didn't. They're trying to put the emotions back now. Some of the reason I don't know, but remember, Janet, where Tom had to kill somebody to prove to him that you could die because they had to take your soul and put them back in another body. But the fact was, nobody reacted. It was a military situation, folks. My husband was a shooter. You understand what I'm saying?
No, we're going to slow it down because you're taking things out of context. But I understand. So let's slow it back down again because that was a lot of information. And
giving too much information.
TJ talked about her. You want to bring on your friend for a few minutes to have them say hi?
Yeah, Dave. How do you fit into this picture, Dave? You've only known me a month on Facebook, so hello. How are you?
Hi. Been listening, and we were. I guess Bill was talking about the difference of experiences, and I've had different experiences. And I talked to Linda Moulton Howell. She took me through an interview to make sure I was on the straight and narrow, and she said I was for real after the interview. And Kathleen Martin, I've done an abduction survey with her, and she says that I'm an abductee, and so she was convinced, and she's with MUFON. Matter of fact, I think Bill probably knows her pretty well, and she's a real nice lady, and she's been giving me, feedback and input on my experiences. My experiences started when I was 14 years of age, and a good friend of mine, I just spoke to him today, matter of fact, we saw this UFO that looked like a toy top when you had back in the 50s, a little bulky thing, and it looked like that. It was a flying saucer, and it had a smell of sulfur, but now I know it's ozone smell that comes off of these UFOs when they come in the atmosphere.
Well, okay. We smelled it.
Yeah, actually, and we saw the lights, and that's why we walked down the street to see what it was. We were standing maybe about 100 feet from it, and I think it's Dr. David Jacobs who says if you're less than 150 feet of a UFO, you've been snatched. So that's his opinion, and that's what usually happens. So I feel that my friend and I were both abducted at 14 years of age, and that's when everything started for me. I think a month or so later, if I can say this, it was in a private part where I dug out a little round thing that looked like an Advil pill, but it was a round disc, and there was a little hole that was slit in my scrotum area. I guess I can say that. Hopefully it's not, but I took it out. Yeah, I took it out through a little slit that was already cut. It was still red, and I pressured it and pushed it out through that little hole that was already slit. And so I showed it to my mom. She said, throw that old thing away. I heard somebody say something about your mother didn't believe in UFOs. Well, back then my mom didn't either. And when I got in from that sighting, I come in the door probably about midnight. I was late, and she was mad. And I said, I saw a UFO, Mom. And she said, I'll UFO your butt. So she wasn't believing my story. But ever since then, I've had things come in and out of my life. I've seen 5 up-close UFOs. I've seen that one that looked like a top, and it had little windows around it, and I was afraid that they were going to be looking out of it. And my buddy and I pinched each other. We couldn't believe we were seeing what we were seeing. And it was scary just for the moment, but I think what happened to us, I think they shot a beam of light on us and kind of put us out. I call it dumbed down. I've been dumbed down several times now. That's my terminology. I don't know what you guys say, how they dumb you down, but there's different amounts of being dumbed down. They can dumb you down where you're sitting there and you're thinking everything's okay. Don't grab a ball bat, don't grab a camera, everything's fine. Just leave it alone. And that happened to me several times, and I have quite a few stories, and I guess I can't fit them in within the time frame that we have now, but maybe later with TJ if that would be fine.
Yeah, we can schedule you for a longer segment where you'll get more of the time. Today we want to get Bill's story, but we want to see how your story correlates with what we've talked about already. So, yeah, so don't worry about the time. We got lots of radio time. We can fit you in again. But go ahead, continue your story. I just wanted to interject that don't worry, we'll get you in. We'll get your story out there.
I'll go through a short synopsis of what happened throughout my life. I got little trinkets, and I noticed that your group there talks a lot of psychology. And I went to a hypnotist one time, and actually I have the towels hum. I hear that hum all the time. I don't know if it's connected to anything that I've run across in my abductions, but I went into this room with this lady who was very experienced hypnotist, and actually I told her I couldn't really think too well because the hum was getting louder and louder, and I looked over, she was out. The hypnosis backfired, and she was out, and I had to go over and shake her a couple of times to wake her up, and she says, "Oh my God, it's the resurrection or whatever." And I said, "What?" She said, "That big ship you were telling me about, the triangle." I had a large, huge triangle ship come over me in my neighborhood. My mom lives right down the street. 2 brothers and my mom saw the same thing, so I have witnesses there too. It was a huge triangle. It just clipped the top of a 75-foot tree across the street, and that was an amazing. Although I have seen other UFOs, that was just kind of like I was all inspired by looking at the bottom of this thing. I saw some things on it that somebody told me I shouldn't be talking about because it involves some feature of the craft that maybe some people don't want me to talk about. But I went ahead and talked about it anyway. There's the one strange thing I noticed about underneath this craft, it was about 5 houses wide. It was a huge craft. And underneath of it, there was a globe in the front. It looked like one of these old glass globes, and you could see through it. The other 2 lights on the back of the other ends of the triangle, they were lit up, like they were powered up to take off. And in the middle of this craft was a large vent. It was kind of like had slats in it. I heard a hissing and a buzz coming out of it, and it was just a small hiss and a buzz, but I could hear it pretty well. And there was a red light towards the back of the ship, and it was a gray metallic color. So it was that's about what I saw. It was just amazing. So, but to go on, I've had things put in my pocket, little trinkets, little discs that I carry. I got 4 of them, and I don't know if that means that they're following me or what that means. I've seen some strange people who I call watchers, and you were talking about humanoids and working with the military. Well, I've seen some humanoid aliens that I ran into, and one story out of Sedona back in 2010, I ran into a Japanese young lady, and she was strange. She was trying to elicit emotions from me. I heard you talk about emotions a while ago, and she was trying to elicit emotions. She had a fake cry, and she was by herself. I was there at Cathedral Rock there in Sedona, and I had my movie camera. She just come right up to me. I thought she was waiting for somebody else. She said no, and so it started raining. She got in my car, and she wasn't afraid to get into a stranger's car. And I asked her, I said, "Are you afraid of me or anything?" She goes, "No." I said, "You can whip my butt?" She goes, "Yes." And she had these eyes that were black and piercing. And I told her, I said, her name was Hiroko. I told her, I said, "Don't look at me like that." I said, "Wow. You know, I have a third eye myself, and I can see and visualize things." But there was a car next to us. This must have been her security. I heard they come in 3s. There's a sponsor, there's a security person, and then there's the hybrid alien, in which is being taught emotional awareness of how humans react and respond. Well, I felt of her hand when she was crying, and her body was burning hot. There's no body that could have been that hot. And I took my hand away, and I said, "You are really hot. Are you okay?" It was chilly that night. So I kind of thought, something's just not right. So then this car pulled in and backed out again and come back in, and the guy looked like he was a young guy, burr haircut, looked like some kind of an FBI official or whatever, and he had a headset on. And I was looking over at him. I looked over at her. She actually shrank down into my seat in the passenger side, and I looked at her, and it's kind of like she almost was turning into a little gray. And that kind of scared me, and I looked at her again, and I looked over at this car, and I thought something is wrong. And so I had a weapon in my console. I had a license for a weapon, and I was going to take that out, and she looked at me like she knew what was in that console. And so I was a little afraid at that time, and then he left for good. And then she left, and then I met her the next day, and we had a lunch together because I was really curious about her, and she said she had to leave town. But I guess the fact that really seals this whole story is 6 months later, March 17th, this was in October of 2010, March 17th of 2011, her and 2 young Japanese young guys come to my house. And she stayed away and had her arms crossed like she usually stands. And these 2 young guys, my cousin and I, was sitting on the porch. They actually dumbed us down. And he usually says a lot of smart remarks and he talks a lot, but he didn't say a word. And I sat there. I couldn't say a word. I was wanting to ask if that was Hiroko, and they looked at us kind of funny, and they just kind of dumbed us down. And then they walked away. I don't know. I think they went in my house because they had a satchel that was mine, and they were looking into it. And I just remember it was just it took me a couple of days to remember that fact that they took out a satchel and was looking into it. And those were my UFO notes at the time. So I thought, okay, how did he get in my house, come back out without me seeing him? Well, they had us dumbed down. Some way or another, and they walked away, and my cousin didn't even see him walk away. I saw them walk away and then meet up, and then they were standing at the end of the street, and they just disappeared. We just turned each other and talked, turned back around, they were gone. So I thought, okay, this concludes this mystery. My cousin got so scared, and this guy is for his paranormal stuff, he's about as shallow as a dry creek bed when it comes to paranormal.
He's as shallow as a dry creek bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he said, I'm getting out of here. He said, I don't know what I just witnessed, but he says, this ET stuff, he said, I've had it. I'm out. So he left. So that's just one of my big stories, and that was one of the big ones. I've seen strange people. I've seen a young lady, and I was with my brothers at a bar, and they come in humans, and I guess they do this. This was a reptilian. What I found out about 2-3 weeks later, and she was very attractive. Looked like she was about 25, and she could really dance really well. And my two younger brothers were younger and better looking than me, and I was wondering why she was paying so much attention to me. And she was kind of like, she stood about 2 or 3 feet away from the table. She was dancing like a professional dancer, and then she walked back to the bar. Well, 2 weeks later, I was with my brother, and we were sitting there at the bar, and I know the bar, the owner and everything, so that's why we go there. I'm not a drunk. Matter of fact, I only drink 2-3 drinks a month. But I was sitting next to her.
Were you looking for women?
No, I was single at the time. I wasn't looking for women. No, not at that time. But
we won't judge.
But yeah,
this is a UFO program.
but she was sitting a chair away from me. I looked over at her and I thought that was her, but she was dressed in blue jeans and kind of a T-shirt like. And I looked over at her. She rolled her eyes to me without turning her head, and she had a reptilian eye, like a cat eye. And when I saw that, I froze in my seat. I thought to myself, this girl is a reptilian in disguise. I've seen other people like that. The Japanese young lady was no doubt some kind of a hybrid alien or an alien that has been disguised, or what they call they can change, shapeshifters is what they call them.
Shapeshifters, yeah.
Yeah. So
I wanted to ask Bill, since he is the MUFON investigator, what would you do? What was your name again, sir? I forgot. I didn't write it down. What's your name?
Dave Evans.
Dave. Okay, so Dave Evans. So Bill, since you are an official MUFON investigator, what do you do with someone who comes to you with a story like that? Break that down for us.
He's an alienologist, isn't he? We got to break this down.
More about that, Bill? Go ahead.
Let me say 2 quick things, and then I'll totally answer that question, stuff that I've been waiting to say. One is, yes, I do know Kathy Martin quite well for decades now, I guess. She's great. A little bit of trivia about her, if it wasn't brought up before. She is actually the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, so that's pretty cool.
Right.
And the other thing about the groups that we have locally, the group that I'm in locally in Michigan, we do have psychologists that are part of our group. So I definitely agree. If I hadn't said that before, and I don't think I did, I do think that there is a tremendous benefit to having a psychologist in your group, especially if they're also an experiencer. That's a real bonus. So with MUFON, who's a group that's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year.
Yes.
The thing about MUFON is, and this is changing slowly, gradually, to the best of its ability, but MUFON was founded to investigate flying saucers. Things in the sky that people see at a distance. The reporting system was all about what azimuth did you see it? Was it near an airport? Can you describe the colors, the duration, et cetera, et cetera? It wasn't about the pilot.
The people, right? The extraterrestrials. Let's get all that, yes. So keep going, yes. It wasn't about the people, the beings.
Yeah, it wasn't about the beings, exactly. And now, so when abduction accounts or contact accounts started to rise, people came to MUFON to report their contact, because in a lot of cases they also were UFO witnesses. So It's very easy to make a correlation. MUFON, when you go to, the traditional MUFON investigative form, how do you check in a box about, height, color, distance? It doesn't make sense. I mean, this is a completely new ball game here when you're dealing with contact. And so, for one thing, the whole reporting structure was not built to take on contact and abductions. So something had to be devised. And when I first joined MUFON, actually in 1993, Shirley Coyne, at the time, she was MUFON's International's head of abduction research, and and she was definitely had her work cut out for her trying to lay the groundwork. Kathy's made tremendous, her and George have been tremendous in really bringing things forward, and whoever else is currently involved with that. The other thing about when somebody talks about the abduction phenomena or the contact phenomena, now the story that Dave had about him seeing a UFO, you could put that into a UFO report, no problem. But when the part where he was talking about the woman that was in his car, later at his home, that sort of a thing, you get to that depth of experience, that breadth of experience, that complex of an experience. You're not just doing a report, you're writing a book. Just to write all that down, everything he had just said, and then add all the stuff that he left out, because clearly, for just the purpose of getting the story out, there's a lot of details that when, I'm sure he would add to that. When you're dealing with an all-volunteer army, which is what MUFON is, and, they're trying to knock out as many UFO reports as they can that come in. Like in Michigan, we get a couple hundred sightings a year, and we sure don't have a couple hundred investigators. We have about a half a dozen, maybe up to at a time. And when these heavy-duty, lifelong experiencers come along and say, "This is my life story, can you take my report?" It's a much bigger deal. You're really dealing at a whole other level. And I believe MUFON is still trying to find the best course forward with that. And it's tough just because of the volume of it and the uniqueness of people's accounts.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Bill, can I interject about MUFON?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I was a researcher in 2008. David Marler, he's been on the convention speaker circuit for Triangle UFOs. He was a good friend of mine. Lives in New Mexico now.
Yeah, I'll probably see him next month. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's got one of the largest libraries around. Probably I think it's second largest. And he's been a friend of mine. We went to conventions in Arkansas together, Eureka Springs, and we had about matter of fact there was D1, D2, D3. There was 4 days that hung out, so we had to give each other the D1, D2. But I was with Dave Marler, and he was a good listener. And he was kind of like a district member, a director for a while for Illinois in 2009 and 2010. But Sam Rando is the director now, and that's way up around Rockford and those places near Chicago where they have their meetings. So that's quite a distance for me. I live near St. Louis in the southern part. So I don't, I haven't had much great feelings for MUFON. But it sounds like, Bill, you are on to something. Most of these MUFON, like the St. Louis chapter and the Illinois chapter, they don't listen to personal experience or encounters. Matter of fact, they seem like they stay away from them because they don't want you to steal their thunder. That's not the thing. It's going there and telling your story. And they don't want to give up the podium a lot of times. They want to sit there and talk about what they want to talk about, and then the experiencers out in the group can't say, they don't get a chance to say a word. Most experiencers don't want to jump up and say, "Hey, I got something to say." They won't do that. They're a little bit reluctant in jumping ahead. I've been a little bit reluctant, Linda Moulton Howell told me with the number of experiences I've had, especially some in depth, she said, I'm going to have a hard time making people believe me. And I said, I know. I've already been there. I can speak to a group of people, and you can see some people kind of looking away. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting anywhere here because you got these non-believers like you were talking about earlier, about people who will believe and some people won't believe. But that's getting into the psychology of it, and I'm glad that you talked about the psychology of it, and that we need to get people together that have had some real experiences, and they're not going to turn their backs on you and say, oh, wow, this guy's crazy or whatever. But now I've gotten to the age where I think I'm retired now, and I'm 70. I'm a young 70, let's say. And I'm a rock and roll drummer, too, so excuse that. But I myself feel that since I'm an experiencer and I've had these experiences, I've also been abducted. I know there's 2 times I knew when I was abducted. Electricity was involved. Static, strong electricity was involved next to my bed, and it just completely immobilized me. I can get into those stories later when you got time, but I'm glad, Bill, that you're talking that the MUFON's changing a little bit, because I've had a hard time even going to the meetings because of how they're just singularly directed. They don't. I don't know. I guess maybe I feel like I'm an experiencer. I've seen these things. I've seen 5 up close UFOs, and I know exactly what they look like. I can tell you almost the date and time I saw them. And I've run into some weird people. I've seen some weird things in Sedona because I have this third eye, in which I think when you get abducted, they leave you with a little energy. I can go through airport screening areas where they have the circular screening thing that's supposed to pick up anything like bomb fragments or powder or whatever on your body. But when I come out of them, they stop me, and they look scared. And then they look at this little human form that's up there, and there's about 4 or 5 yellow spots on that human form. And my wife was with me on both occasions when I was flying to the Philippines, and I was scared to death that here I go, I'm going to be stripped down. But they didn't. They did pat me down. They wand me and all this other stuff, and they give me a swab with my hands, and they were literally afraid with all the yellow spots I had in my body that was something that was a red flag. And I asked the guy, I said, what is that? And the TSA agent says, I don't know. But he said, it's strange. I've never seen it before. So this electricity that apparently hits me, my wife tells me when I touch her at night, sometimes she can feel the electric shock from my fingers. So I've had that experience with this electrical shock. And so it might be, put into my DNA. I don't know. So what I just wanted to do is interject myself.
I don't know anything
Yes.
about you, but you were military, right?
Yes.
And what branch?
Army.
All right. Just checking. I was Navy, but I worked joint. I wore all Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. The only uniform I didn't own was Coast Guard. Although I went and visited them a lot, and my dad was Coast Guard, but they never would issue me a uniform. But I think they felt like they did mostly local stuff, and I was in and out of country a lot. Well, we'll have to get together and bring you back, Dave, and let you give your life story. Yeah. We do archiving.
Okay. Let me interject something here. One of the things, I've gone to for the last 25 years. I've been going to all the UFO conferences, many as I could afford to, and I was part of all these, the emergence of all the experiencer groups and helped develop them. I've worked with other encounter groups all through the years. My husband, Dr. Lessin's been doing it. He's going to be 79, and he's been doing it since the 60s, right? So we know how to do encounter groups. One of the things I've been toying with other facilitators is creating an immersion, like a retreat for experiencers, so we can go really deeply into our processes and help get the stories and flesh them out, and also perhaps alleviate some of the post-traumatic stress disorder, because part of it being an experiencer is that you get PTSD and you don't know how to fully integrate your experiences, and you don't know how to approach your family, to come out of the closet, that type of thing, so you don't get ridiculed. So we're thinking of creating it, and anyway, I'm just putting it out there. What do you guys think? Would that be a good idea? It'd be all the a group of trained professionals. But we're looking for, we don't want to do like in a hotel, more like something like a retreat center. So you can have your time where you're doing your intensive work, and then you can maybe go relax in a hot tub or take a little hike in the woods, that type of thing. So you can continually be integrating your experience, go into it and then go into nature, go into it and then, something. That's what we're looking at. Does anybody have any feedback or thoughts on what I see emerging? And
right.
What do you think? Would that be something that you might enjoy doing? To go deeper in your process?
Are you talking to me?
Talking to everybody
Dave?
On the panel here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but Dave,
I would be interested
have a lot
in
of
that type
emotion.
of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the support groups I haven't been very fond of because I have been a strong person, and I've been able to walk through these experiences. I've had some fear. I was scared to death several times doing this, but I want to keep going because I want to find answers. Like, why me? Why did they follow me? Why have I seen so many UFOs when some people don't see one in their whole life? I've seen 5 up close, and I've seen many at a distance. It's just like, why me? And my wife knows I've been seeing things like that, and she's seen some things too. So we've been married 6.5 years, but it's kind of you have that. I don't want sympathy. I want somebody to give me answers, basically.
Right.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at. Anyway, just to give us a head up, it's 36 heading up to the top of the final hour. So what do you want to cover here before we sign off? And we will have you back, Dave, and we'll do a whole thing focus on you.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave Emmons. Yeah.
Dave,
Dave,
contact me after the show, Dave, and I'll put you on the calendar.
Okay.
Pardon?
I keep putting.
Yes, I will. I'll call
I do
you.
the calendar, so contact me, and I will. Yeah, make sure you get the info from TJ, but don't do it on air. Okay, so Bill, let's pass the talking stick back to you, and then we'll go round robin one more time, and then that'll be the end of the show. So, Bill, what would you like to say to our listeners? What would you like them to know about you and the work?
Okay, just if I could say a little bit more with regards to MUFON. I love MUFON. I'm a company man. I've been with MUFON since '93, so more than half of MUFON's experience, time. I've been a member of it, and to say, I feel I have a deep understanding of the organization, and if I didn't like what I see, I wouldn't be part of it. But MUFON, it struggles oftentimes it walks several tightropes. One is receiving UFO information, and the other is receiving information from experience and abduction-related phenomena. And that's a tricky tightrope to walk because the reporting systems for each of these two types of phenomena, as I think I got into detail with already, are widely different, are handled remarkably different. UFO witness, even psychologically, UFO witnesses, you get a UFO witness on the phone, like, wow, I saw that thing, it must have been less than half a mile away, it was the coolest. And then, you get an abductee saying, yeah, I saw this thing, must have been half a foot away. It scared the bejesus out of me. And you're dealing, there's all sorts of different, it's although they're in the same basket, it's very much apples to oranges, the comparison in many cases. And the other tightrope walk that MUFON walks is that, in one sense, being around 50 years as the most credible civilian UFO research group with tons and tons of sightings under its belt, it wants to get information that will one day hopefully be noticed by the scientific community and say, wow, look at this data that MUFON has collected on UFOs all these years. We just love to be able to use that. And then suddenly, the scientific community has a giant boon of well-reported craft sightings. And so it wants to be, MUFON tries to be the public face of the phenomena to the world. It's grassroots. It tries its best to be as scientific as it can with an all-volunteer army. And, credibility is something that's very much in the mind of MUFON and what it tries to do. When things come into the MUFON reporting system that aren't as easily classified, like the experiencer phenomena, it is the experiencer phenomena. It's so wide in what it covers, and again, you're dealing with people who didn't just see one thing; they're dealing with life stories. It's a whole different depth of reporting that you have to do to really get that information down. And so when you have an all-volunteer army and you say, hey, here's somebody, take down their life story, it's like, what? I was just expecting to hear some guy that a bright light off in the sky, made a right-hand turn. It's another thing that MUFON, tries its best to work through. And, as an all-volunteer army, that means that everybody in the group, a lot of people say, my opinions of MUFON are this, or my opinions of MUFON are that. MUFON is an all-volunteer army. That means anybody can join. Anybody can become a UFO field investigator. Anybody can rise up the ranks. There is a vast array of different viewpoints within the organization, and that's what really makes it a very strong organization, even if there's, that sort of public message that the organization likes to give out. To me, my opinion to most people is, if you don't like MUFON, change it from within. You've got an opinion, you've got a voice. If you got some time on your hands, work towards crafting the type of organization that you think would best fit everybody, because that's what best benefits the organization, and that's what best benefits UFO witnesses, the experiencer community, and the world. You're not joining the military and taking orders. You're joining a family, a group of all individuals working to try to study the phenomena and get the word out about the phenomena. It's a very flexible, fluid organization, or if at least you see it like that, then you could really make MUFON your own, and make your voice heard. So I definitely stress that for anybody who has any opinions whatsoever about the organization. And so when to circle back to my experiences, when I first found MUFON in 93, this was during the real heyday of abduction publicity, I guess. You had Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and John Mack and, of course, Whitley Strieber and Carla Turner and, Betty Andreas and Luca, and just all sorts of people were just putting out book after book after amazing book on the phenomena, during this sort of 80s, 90s phase. And abductions and the experiencer phenomena was really on the mind and really had the attention of so many people. And that is when I got into MUFON. That's when I got into the organization, and Shirley Coyne, the Michigan state director at the time, who was also a state licensed hypnotherapist, who was also the head of MUFON's abduction research. She, gave me a set of, half a dozen regressions, and I just, it really changed me, made me much more sure-footed on my path of exploration of the phenomena. And, I kept with it. And the people I've met along the way, it's been a wonderful thing. An interesting thing you find when you have a lifelong set of experiences is one day you're going to have that conversation with somebody else, and you're going to have what you think is a unique experience. Like, this never happened to anybody else. I've heard this story. I've heard other people who've seen mantises. I've had other people that say, you know, this, that, and the other, but, you know, nobody's ever had this type of experience. And then one day, I guarantee you're going to bump into somebody, if you are well-networked, who has had that same strange experience that you thought was unique to only yourself. And then you have that double-edged sword moment where on one hand you're like, oh my gosh, thankfully I've met somebody else with the same experience, so I know I'm not crazy. And then on the flip side, you're like, darn it, now I can't deny that happened anymore. On those days where I just want to pretend that none of this ever happened, I can't do that anymore because I finally found somebody else that the same weird thing happened to them too. And, you know, so, you have to put it in that column of, you know, verification. This happened. Yeah, so
that
I don't know.
Real.
It's a wild adventure, and, you know, who knows where things are going. I think public opinion is swinging hard towards acceptance of the phenomena. There is still no agreed upon perspectives or, you know, even language about what's going on, but, you know, just science is coming around, public opinion is coming around, and I think it's all for the better. I think that the rest of the world just has to catch up to those who've already had this type of experience happen to them.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good analysis. Okay, so TJ, we've got about 10 minutes. What would you like?
I'm showing 13.
Take this?
I'm showing 13 on there. We may could go a minute or two after.
Okay.
All right, folks,
Yeah.
We've got all these topics up here, and I am building the UFO Association organization. I actually started years ago with two very famous guys, George Filer and Stanton Friedman, but, you know, it was hard, and I've had a lot of websites, but getting people to work together is very, very hard. Plus, Bill's making a lot of sense because it is a volunteer army. It is, they do give dues, and we don't know the board of directors and where the money's going, and that's been a big thing when I was in MUFON, and I've gotten people drop my name on UFO Digest writing about it and stuff and using me with a group of people that I wasn't even involved or at the meetings, and I didn't know why they were using my name, other than I was a publisher and a journalist. Now, you know, I was CUFOS, but I was J. Allen Hynek. I met him in an airplane. So CUFOS was a separate organization, and at one time when we were building this internet, cyberspace, there weren't that many organizations. You could count them basically on one hand that were really well known. Now, I don't know, you can go to Wikipedia, but even Wikipedia has sort of gotten taken over a little strangely nowadays, although I still enforce, or I still pay my little dues or my money to them. What we're trying to do here is amazing because it's happening all its own. I just tonight changed my logo for UFO Association because it seems like no matter what I do, Janet always seems to want to do the UFO thing, and it just keeps coming back. It will not go away in my life. So I guess I might as well write a book and just say, okay, this is the real deal. This is how I feel about it. Now who wants to play? So if you're out there, Dave found me, Dave Emmons. He says we've only been friends a month, so I don't even know how we became friends. So Facebook is where it's at, folks, right now. I know all those people are getting mega rich off of investing in it, but it is what Bill calls a network. William has joined us. He is the MUFON of MUFON. He is the Michigan director of the chapter of Michigan, and it's called the state director. So they separated by state, and I suggest we do the same thing. But I'm looking for alienologists, journalists, people that want to write about subjects that we're discussing tonight. So if you're interested, please let me know. I really do use AI as far as I can with inside the cyberspace connection with everybody. So that's something we're going to keep talking about, parapsychology, people, phenomenology, and how we're going to get together. And I understand fear. The opposite of fear is what? Love. So love and fear. And it sounds funny, but Janet and I have been working together, and it seems like no matter what, a lot of people are going direct to YouTube now. It's free. You can make your own YouTube. Everybody seems to be doing that. A lot of the kids are using Instagram, Facebook. We're using Facebook, and we're all retired now. So, Dave, I'd like to invite you to help. If you want to have some time on your hands, you can help us get people that want to help in this multi-complex phenomena group. I'm just calling them UFO paranormal researchers for lack of better words, but many of us are alienologists, like Daryl Sims. He has alienhunters.org, and I sort of have that up for other people that want to do what he does. But I have seen a split between ufology and alienology. So, I don't know. Bill and Dave, you've both been in MUFON. I was in MUFON in 2008, and I heard Dave say 2008. Isn't that interesting? That's the only year I paid my dues ever.
Right. But I'm not, it's like I'm not knocking MUFON. I'm not saying that. But just like Bill said, it's a volunteer army. And sometimes you'll get some of these people who will take that authority and think they have stars on their shoulders, like a general star. And I ran into that field investigators, like they kind of like, all right, yeah, I heard your story, that's fine. Okay, we'll go about our business. And if you got to take all these stories seriously that people talk about, because there's a connection with all of it. And
you're a journalist,
half of the people,
you have a journalist's mind, don't you?
Yes, I my college was in journalism.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
You're probably military, so you understand. You understand organization and working with teams. You also understand how to take all the information collectively because of your background as a journalist. So we could use you, and we're looking for people that have already retired that thought they were going to have a gold watch and a pension and have all this money to travel around the world and don't now. So, we're here to pick up the pieces as ETs, extraterrestrials. You call us hybrids, walk-ins, I don't care. Just don't call me late for dinner. But the thing is, I'm nothing to be scared of. I've got a birth certificate. I have a body. I'm human. And the fear factor and the giggle factor have been the two main reasons I wasn't allowed to do anything while I was working for the government and getting a paycheck. I am no longer getting a paycheck. I am retired, and Janet wants to write a book and get on with her life now. So Janet did have a event in 2018 in Albuquerque, and we're looking at metaphysical groups because I want to be more eclectic, but I'm going to see how many people fall into the metaphysical genre here at my Gulf Breeze, because I already do 2 shows a year with the local New Horizons, or last year, and I've done one this year, January, and they have, we do this at the Navarre Conference Center, if anybody's interested in Gulf Breeze, and they're mostly psychics, to be honest with you, and I'm a psychic medium, but I used to hate the words, and I used counselor and life coach. I've written plenty of books out there. I invite you all to write books, although, selling them is another thing. Writing is only the big part of it. Now, Bill Konkolesky joined us tonight. He is the MUFON director. Like I said, he is an author, so he could join our Authors Book Club. I only promote people in my club, and I call it a club for the reason that I couldn't get people to work together as a nonprofit or for profit. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to have a club, and that way I can. And this is something the county I live in, Kentucky, told me. He became the magistrate, my friend, and he said, just make it a club. That way you can choose who comes and who goes. If somebody says stuff you don't like, you can kick them out. Just like that club you went to, Dave, right? I can give them a club, a membership card, and say, you're a bona fide member. You paid $1 for it. You can come into my house. So we're going to do something like that. So if you're interested, Dave, you're welcome to come figure it out. Everybody goes to Facebook for Janet, Carol Lessin, Theresa J. Morris. Bill, you got a Facebook page? Are you my friend, Bill Konkolesky? William, are you a friend of mine?
Yes, I am. And actually, on Facebook? Yeah. And also, Dave, I sent you a friend request as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I was going to say I've been on Gary Anderson's nighttime talk radio, and I'll be on his show on the 20th. And I guess his computer put my sections on YouTube on my. I did almost 2 hours with him about a week or so ago, and I'll be on the 20th also with Gary Anderson, Night Dreams Talk Radio is what it's called.
Huh? What channel? Do you know who he works with? Or is it
He works with
KTRA?
himself. He works with himself. I don't know the ins and outs of his connections, but he's his own boss. I mean, he's good friends with Art Bell, who passed away a year or so ago, and he was good friends with him. So that tells you something. I liked Art Bell.
Hey, what's his first name? Is Anderson, wasn't
Gary.
it?
Gary Anderson.
I think I've heard of him. I just don't know where he's located. Well, Janet has Aquarian Radio, folks. I have TJ Mars ET Radio. My company is American Communications Online.
I want to say something before we run out of time. TJ, I want to say one more thing before we run out of time. I am looking to record people and document them, and I'm on a roll here. I've got hundreds of stories. I like working with people, so if you're out there and you want to come on and be interviewed like this, like Zabe and like Bill, just contact me at aquarianradio@gmail.com. That's my main website, aquarianradio@gmail.com. And we will get the stories recorded and out there, and if you want to be anonymous, that's okay, but it's really good when you come out of the closet and state your name, because the more of us that come out, the more we're going to shift this paradigm and, make it safe for people to come out and tell the truth, because otherwise we go through life afraid, and we don't need to do that anymore as the time is upon us. Yes.
Right.
So, okay. So I'm going to, you got 4 minutes. Go ahead, TJ,
okay.
However you want to talk, and I'm going to mute my mic, and that'll be it. Aloha from me. I'll listen.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I've got Friday tomorrow with Dr. Rick Allen Miller, people on ESP, CIA, SEAL team. We're going to do more military consciousness work. His wife wrote, I Married the Wizard of Oz, and so his wife is a policy writer for CIA, stuff like that. So if you're into all the intelligence side of this world, in which I'm promoting, please join me tomorrow night with Dr. Rick Allen Miller with our ACO Invisible College, which is also the ACE Metaphysical Institute. I'm promoting here where I live in Gulf Breeze. Bill Konkolesky, I'd like to have you back if you'd like to join our Authors Club, or if you're brave out there in the UFO business. I have a lot of friends that won't touch my business. They don't like UFOs. They don't want to do anything. Aliens, they think that they're going to come land on the churches, and so I'm a universal life minister, so I'm very multidimensional in my thinking and consciousness, and I like to work with quantum physics. And Dr. Miller is a physicist, and I'm following Tom Campbell, also a physicist, a friend of mine on Facebook. But whatever your part is, Bill, apparently you've written this book, and I'd like to see you write some more books. I'm a publisher, folks. I come from wanting to promote authors. I started this for Janet, really. I was being interviewed on a lot of UFO type of shows that I didn't want to be, but because I was promoting UFO Digest in Canada, they asked me to be on Kevin Smith's show, and he died. So much for my story, it went away. Another guy had me thousands, and Alfred Lambermont had immediately 5,000, 10,000 hits immediately that night, and he took it off because he said it was complicated. He didn't want to be compromised. So I don't know what's going on about other people trying to put me on radio shows, but it hadn't been easy. So I got my own. So come talk to me, UFO people. It's TJ Mars ET Radio. Aquarian Radio supports me. I support her, and we just did it because we started together right here on Sunday, June 6, 2012, and she and I are doing a book. So if you're an author, join our authorsbookclub.org, and it's free to join, and UFO Association is free to join, and we're using Facebook for networking outreach. So, Bill, I'd like to have you back sometime. Everybody can email me at TJ Mars. Email is TJ Mars Agency, using the word agency because I was doing so many blogs, and so was Janet. We each had 75 to 100 blogs alone. We couldn't do that much journalism and editing. We used to just live in a computer. So now we went to radio. Now we're going to YouTube. So go figure. We're going to put our old mutts out there for you to see. So if you want to do a live YouTube with us, please let us know. You can join us on Patreon. Mine is Patreon.com. It's like $1 to get a card with me, but if I don't like you, I take it back. That's just something we learned from MUFON, didn't we? We learned from hanging out in the bars with the slitted-eyed people. If you got slit eyes, we may not want to talk to you. But anyway, no, seriously, so you know what I'm talking about. So, Bill,
I have a 250-page ledger, and with this Japanese young lady, I do have a lot of notes on her, and I thought about that would make a nice screenplay for a short movie. So it was something big in my life, I guess.
Yeah, anybody, they say anybody can read anything and anybody can write anything, and it's all been said before, folks. So, just take an open mind and create your own language if you want to. Listen to Tom Campbell on My Big Toe, TOE, it's for Theory of Everything. Also, please look at Irvin Laszlo, his Theory of Everything at the Akashic Field, A Field. That's where most of us have been for the last.
I think we're at the end of the show, TJ. I think we're out of time. Just to give you a heads up,
I know,
4 o'clock.
I see it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Janet. All right. So, everybody, we're going to take a load out of here.
Okay.
We could go over a few minutes. But, Bill, please, I'd like to have you back when you have time. Just get back in touch with us. I like your voice. I like your style. You've got a good bedside manner there, Bill, going on for you. So, congratulations.
Sure.
We'll try to get you involved with other people.
Sure, please. Thank you.
Thank you for being my friend on Facebook. Dave Emmons, thank you for being my friend and for showing up on our show tonight. Janet Carol Lessin, as always, she's my BFF, friends, even though she and I fight a lot. We don't. All right. Love and light, everybody. And, keep the faith. And we'll be back tomorrow night with a pretty detailed thing. So you're welcome to call in, both of you guys, anytime, Friday nights. And for the last hour, I'll try to put you on. Pass the word around about TJMRCT Radio, guys, okay?
Okay, will do.
All right. Come back to it. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.